All right, we are live on Facebook.
Hello.
Hopefully everybody can actually see us and hear us. We're live here in Florida. Very excited to be here. The weather is wonderful. And this is Warrior Women in Business. For those of you who don't know anything about Warrior Women in Business, we are just that. We are women that have been there and done that in business across the industry. And really what Warrior Women in Business is all about, which is a women's organization, a conference series called Brand You, and the clothing brand is really about supporting female entrepreneurs by providing them access to information, access to mentors like Nia and I, access to events, and a lot of other fun things as they grow their businesses. So that's Warrior Women in Business. You can check out warriorwomenbusiness.com for more information. But we're running a couple of minutes late, so I'd like to get right into today's podcast that I drove, like 5 hours to get over here. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jasmine Sandler. I started Warrior Women in Business as an offshoot to the Brand New Conference Series in 2018, which is a conference series to support the branding development of female entrepreneurs. And really, it's come a long way. We have weekly podcast series where I interview thought leaders in different industries, as well as Warrior Women in Business exclusive coaches that are really here to help you build your business in a number of ways. So Nia Dara, who I'm at her house today, which is just gorgeous. We wanted to do a podcast segment today on, really, if you've seen the title, Why Does Your Brand Suck? And it's really about branding design. A lot of people get it wrong because they honestly, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, don't give it the time and the effort upfront to plan, right?
Yes,
for
absolutely.
proper design. And so at the end of the day, they're spending, honestly, a lot of time and money in pushing things out in social media and other platforms and not seeing results.
Absolutely.
So that being said, again, I'm Jasmine Sandler. I'm here with Nia Dara with Warrior Women in Business. And I want to just dig right in, Nia, on brand design.
Let's do it.
Right? Why does some brands suck? So talk to me a little bit about when I say that.
Okay.
What does that mean to you when you say a brand design sucks?
Oh, I think it's more of a personal preference and also taking stock of where things are. And there's actually no judgment on anyone's brand. We all have to take our very first steps. And in the beginning, it's all about getting it done. But at some point, you get to a stage in your business where you might be thinking about how your brand presents itself to the world, how it's being received, and how that's translating into dollars for your business. And if you're thinking about that you may be thinking, well, maybe my brand needs some improvements. And that's where that catchy little title comes into play. So no judgments, but let's talk about how to improve brand design so that it has a audience experience that's going to attract and retain your audience for a longer time, and that they're going to have a great experience with your brand so they can be top of mind, because that's really what it's about.
Right.
You know, we're all inundated with so much media and ads and all of this stuff, and we're all being trained every single day to consume more media, and we have certain standards. And so that's a lot about what we're going to talk about today in terms of brand design, is the trends and standards that we're all getting used to seeing, and what that means to how people are going to experience your brand, and why that drives their decision-making, their buying power, the trust. All of that stuff really does come down to design. Not only visual, but also the feel, right? If your website feels effortless, if your brand and the communication feels effortless, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So branding is a big topic, as we both know. The way that Nia and I came together is, for those of you who know me, I do brand strategy and look at personal brand strategy and corporate brand strategy, right? So sometimes they can be synonymous, as we've seen with some of our joint clients, and some of the times they're very different. So when you think about personal brand design versus corporate brand design, how do you think about that? And what can you tell the audience about how you might approach it, or how you have approached it for some clients?
Okay, well, for personal brand, it really is personal, right? You're really connecting on an emotional level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you're connecting on a more human level. Not to say that corporate is not human, it is.
Yeah.
But it tends to be more contextual, more industry related. Mm-hmm. You're really trying to bring trust and value through your expertise and knowledge in that sense. Mm-hmm. And you will do that as well in a personal brand, but you're going to also bring more of a human connection, right? You're not trying to be too mechanical in that degree. And so,
can I stop you for a second just to ask you something?
Absolutely.
I get as a brand strategist, how can, in design, female entrepreneurs use their personal brand to humanize their corporate brand or their small business brand? Because it's a question I get a lot, and I can answer it from brand strategy, but you're the design expert.
Yes. Well, from a design standpoint, you're saying how to humanize your brand
So what I'm saying is, I deal a lot with the strategy of executives, okay, female executives that want to leverage their personal brand. Really, it's their knowledge base to build a brand that has value, that supports the market share of a corporate brand. And I do that in strategy and outreach. So what I'm asking is, in design, if you're a small business owner and you want to design a small business brand, right?
Yes.
But you also want to design a personal brand. How can the two of those support each other in terms of design? Like, is there anything that you've done in terms of design where you've seen that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A lot of clients that I've worked with that have multiple brands, like maybe they have their own personal brand and then they have their business. This is one of those tricky questions. And ultimately, it really does come down to your business model first, right? So you really want to take stock of where your revenue streams are coming in from and where your communication portals are coming in, right? So if you're a personal brand and you've been driving a lot of traffic to your personal brand, but then you have this offshoot business, you may have to integrate those through design, and you can do that by doing it through color hierarchy. Different elements on your website can lean into different areas of your business, and you can start to use visuals, design visuals to help cue people in when you're making changes to the business. So like, let's say you're more of a personal brand, but you're really trying to push this other arm of your business from a design perspective.
From a design perspective, right.
You can start to bring in those colors visually on social media. You can start designing assets around that to start slowly visually communicating to your audience that there are changes that are coming up. And this actually speaks into a bigger campaign strategy that you would do to start to integrate those two different brand communications. But there is a way to do both. Again, it does really come down to the business model of what is going to be the center or the umbrella brand, and then how to design around that theme. So I think there's a lot that goes into that, but I find that comes up quite a bit.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question. I didn't do that on purpose. But I want to talk about the importance of, which you were touching upon, but maybe the audience who's listening or watching doesn't know. You were touching upon process. I love process because I'm a strategist. So talk to us about how the branding process works for a female entrepreneur. So a female entrepreneur comes to you because their brand, hence the title of this podcast, episode 34, is that the brand isn't really driving traction. Okay. So what's your process? I know you mentioned colors a little bit. You mentioned parlaying it against the corporate brand. So talk to us about the process and maybe some things that they could learn about the process.
Okay. Well, before I dive into doing any kind of design implementation, I really want to understand the brand itself. I want to understand, again, where their audience is, what's the problem that they're looking to solve with their product and their services, because that's going to speak very highly into the full communication of, let's say, a new website, if that's something that they're going to do,
right.
Or how they're going to express their brand in terms of the visual narrative across all of their channels, right? Social media and any other portals that the business might live. And then from there, really it's understanding, understanding of color balance and tones and all of these fields in terms of design specifically, who their audience is, if it's a very...
So let me ask you this, hate to interrupt you, but I get these questions from my clients and I know that they want to take notes today. So when you talk about colors, how can someone start to think about colors if they have no sense of brand design? Do you guide them through that? Like, let's just talk about that.
Okay, sure.
Because that's a question I get a lot, and I'm sure that people would want to hear about.
Absolutely. So yes, color plays a really big role in people's choices and trust and so forth. Generally, for example, many feminine brands often lean to the blush families or the red families or the, that tend to hint at femininity without actually going overboard, and some may actually dive all the way in, right? It's kind of like what their preference is. But you'll often find that if you, or going for like a corporate or financial business service, you'll often find that they use classic blues. That relates to trust.
I love blue.
Yes, it does. And it actually was one of the Pantone color for 2020 was classic blue, right? Because people wanted trust. They wanted to know that something was what it was. So that was a very powerful color for 2020. Even though 2020 is behind us.
Yeah, thank God.
Thank God.
We are outside, by the way. That's why we don't have our masks on.
Yes, that's right.
I needed to say that disclaimer.
Yes.
So go ahead.
So color does influence quite a bit. You can use colors to jar, to disrupt point of view. You can use it.
Good point.
Yeah. So you find a lot of personal brands today tend to use like a one color, so everything's like black, white, and then an accent color.
Yeah.
That's a very easy way to kind of distinguish yourself. You can go more bold to, again, disrupt the audience. If maybe you're more in a creative field, maybe music or art, where you can kind of, you know, buck the status quo just a little bit. So color has a huge influence. And using color well is really important because using, you know, one of the big things in design is contrast and white space or negative space, right? That's where you allow things to breathe. Like in an art gallery, you never see all the art cluttered together, right? It's always kind of
it's always a white background.
Exactly, because things should breathe. And that when you're thinking about design, whether you're thinking about it for a small social post or if you're thinking about it for a sales page or a website, you want to make sure that you don't over clutter your design and allow it to breathe and let your ideas, right, what your context of what you're trying to say resonate and feel light. And then you use contrast color to capture the eye. So the eyes know where to go, where to press those buttons, how to navigate what you're trying to say, what's the hierarchy, what's the most important thing that you're trying to convey in that particular design. And when in doubt, use color pickers. There's many of them across the internet.
Right.
You know, because very jarring colors that kind of don't make sense, like those crazy, like neon colors that don't have symmetry or balance, can feel really jarring and can actually make it hard to read.
That's true. People don't think about that. And you know me, I'm the biggest stickler when it comes to font.
Yes.
My favorite thing in the universe. So, I would add to that and say, think about your font usage with your color, because a copy as a writer is just important as design.
Absolutely. And sizing and weight play a role
and
in
spacing
that.
And leading and all of those things, right?
Absolutely. And there is actually like fonts that are more modern today that are kind of considered like gender neutral.
Oh yeah?
Like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the you know, classic trend, like they're moving away from the serif, but like the sans serif, very clean looking and approachable for everyone. So these are all different types of ways to look at fonts and colors, and they have so much more meaning than at first glance. Excellent.
So a couple other questions that I have. So I deal a lot in user experience of websites, really because I'm a bottom line person, as Nia knows. So I'm all about getting the sale for my clients. So let's talk about design, websites, and user experience, because website design work has changed since I've been in it for like 20 years, so much, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about like where trends are going in website design?
Okay.
Because, you know, so it's gone, I don't know if you agree with me, like from like obviously the old school HTML and then into more modern CMS to corporate pages, e-commerce, and parallax design. So talk to us about website design, where it's going, what are some best practices right now?
Okay. So what's really exciting in terms of web design that's happening right now is that technology is actually moving to drag and drop for the average person like us trying to build things, right? So
you're not very average.
Well, it just means that we can take the reins, right? So back in the day, you hired a web developer, although web developers are super amazing, not putting them down, totally. We need them.
Do not put them down.
No, not at all. They build the big
be a web developer, you'd be carrying all your hair.
They build the big, amazing stuff that like goes beyond like,
of course,
solopreneur kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So if you're yourself trying to build something online, you have many options to you nowadays, which is a lot of drag and drop applications in platforms far and wide, learning platforms, sales funnels, websites, you name it, memberships, it's all drag and drop, right? So what that means for you is that the technical component of that is easy to use, but it means more than ever that the design elements are like, you want to get those right. And design from a user experience.
Explain that to the audience so they get it. What will happen if they don't have that?
So what it means for you, right? So we've all been, you know, if you have a phone, if you have a computer, an iPad, we're all being conditioned to process information through different websites and experience apps and all of these things. And so there becomes a standard of design. And you want to at least try, with whatever resources you have available to you, to try to meet those standards, right? So the antiquated way of like building a website, you actually have more options now, which is great.
Yeah,
so,
it really is.
You know, you have websites that are mobile responsive, meaning that, you know, the content shrinks down to fit the device that you're watching it, looking it on. Yes.
You can check.
Yeah. And so people have that expectation and that standard. So the old HTML websites that they're hard to read on mobile means that could be potentially pushing a...
Well, like 50% of all audience traffic now is on mobile. So it's, not just the phone, the tablet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
it's
okay.
Very important.
So if a consumer cannot read your website on mobile, then they might as well drop away. And from an SEO standpoint, right, from Google search engine, right? Yes. Google can actually penalize you if your site is not readable, right? So those are just some of the basics, I think, when it comes to that. And so the importance of really having a user-friendly design is like of the utmost importance now. You want to take away as many pain points as you can to getting someone to come and enjoy and experience your design and have a good experience. And I will also say one thing too. Leave the creativity for the creative process. Like, don't change too many like standard things that we come to expect in websites, like navigation buttons. If you put them in a weird place,
right?
We
don't
can't
try
find
to be
them.
so abstract.
If they have to guess, they may jump off the
That's
site.
right. I design for the simple people. What I always say.
Or save the creativity for where it really can count, which is in like your social posts and your email newsletters, and get creative and, you know, have fun and play in those areas.
So let's talk about another thing on website design. It's just a huge topic. I mean, we'll get to social design, but I think it's a little bit simple in my personal opinion. But so website design. So, you know, of course, we work together, and I do a lot in the world of search marketing, social media, and blah, blah, blah. So a question for you about website design when it comes to interactivity. So when we talk about search engine optimization, as Nia mentioned, one of the most important factors is human user experience, and that goes into conversion optimization, right? And she also touched upon having a site that people don't have to guess about, but that they can interact with you. So the key word there is the interaction. So what do you have to say about all the technology that we could use on websites to drive interactivity, and how do you balance that with design? How do you balance great design with all these opportunities and technology and functionality?
Okay. Well, there are a ton of things that you can apply to your site today. We've got chat boxes and all kinds of pop-ups and different kind of AI features. Now, I have two things to say on this. You can apply all of them, but if they don't actually work for your business, they're not going to go anywhere.
Well, that goes back to strategy.
Right. So I would say find out the ones that work best for your business first, and then apply the ones that work. So for some businesses, chat boxes may work extremely well, and you can add them into design, and they're an amazing feature. Yeah. And for others, there may be, you know, other kinds of calling or communications. For more advanced businesses, you might find like AI type of bots where they actually can predict some of the language and things that you're interacting with on the site. And those can all be really great in ways to help bring communications, because websites in and of themselves do not drive traffic, right? They are like the house, right?
And they're the conversion point.
Right, they're the conversion point. But it's up to you to send the invites out to get people to show up to the house.
Through proper SEO. Right. Don't say it, because I'm just going to talk about SEO for an hour and a half, and this is an episode about design. So sorry, Nia.
No, it's okay. So any of these applications are there to drive traffic, drive interaction, have better experiences on site, and really ultimately good design is actually good customer service nowadays, because most people come online. Like if you think about, if you had to find something in your local area right now, where would you look to find that thing? You'd probably go to a map, or which leads to, you know, your search engine, or you know. So good customer support nowadays comes from the online experience. So if you're giving good design, strong SEO, you know, ways for people to connect with your business, you're doing them a service, and you're doing your business a service as well. It's a symbiotic relationship. They're looking, they have a need that they need fulfilled, and you're there to help them. And I think good design is part of that.
Yeah, and something, if you don't mind, I'm going to add to it. I mean, it kind of has to do with design, but for me, it has to do with just helping you guys understand the importance of continuing to improve your website traction, is to have good analytics so that you can, and think about the funnels on your website. That affects design and affects SEO. And what I'm really meaning is, who's your customer? How are they going to go through the website, and what actions do you want them to take? Because then you'll probably think twice about implementing some type of technology that won't work. And secondarily, once you start to look through analytics, like I'm an analytics nerd, I look through my website analytics every day. It's like so fun. But you can see what you're doing correctly and what you're not doing. And am I right that some of that might mean better design or added design or subtraction of design, right?
Absolutely. One of the things that I love also too, going back to like data and stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
I love like looking at heat maps on a website.
Oh yeah.
Heat maps
Cool.
are sexy things to me. No, I'm just kidding.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they are really cool. So for those that
we can use that word on Warrior Women.
Okay, good.
Who doesn't want to hear that word? We're not boring. So go ahead.
So heat mapping is basically where you can actually see where your audience drops off on your website. So it gets red, and then it goes yellow, and then down to like orange, and then yellow, right? So essentially what you're seeing is where the traffic starts to drop off. Why this is really important and how this affects design.
Huge.
Is because you can actually place specific calls to action, products, and things like that in the most important areas where you want them to be seen. So let's say you have a product or service that's selling, but it's actually buried deep at the bottom of your website.
Yeah.
So if you actually have a chance to heat map and kind of look at your site, you can see that actually one of your best converting products is buried way at the bottom. Maybe if we lifted it up in design and gave it someplace else to live, that it could actually do better and produce more sales and, you know, get in front of more people, help more people out.
Well, that's what it's all about too. So you can we do website strategy and design, but it's an ongoing, continual process. Marketing, right? So to your point, it's really important to continually see how your website is performing, and not just have a great website with great strategy up front. It's a continual process.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about what a lot of people ask me about, which is social media design.
Okay.
All right. So in a perfect world, you have a marketing budget and you do everything correctly.
That's right. And then reality sets in.
Yes, please. Well, you know what? Maybe we could just have some contests at Warrior Women in Business. They all win money.
Yeah.
But no, seriously speaking, so in a perfect world, you have a brand strategy that then dictates website design and social design. But let's just say that most of the people that are either listening in now or will listen in later when we rebroadcast this have disjointed social media design to their other brand design, like their website or printed materials, you know. So let's talk about social design and what are like the important basics of social media design in your opinion?
Okay. I think the basic number one rule is cohesiveness. I think it's really important. Again, let's go back to customer service, right? So if you were to walk into a store and no one were to greet you and you didn't know where anything was, the product that you were looking for, well, what if it was something that you really needed help with?
Ask my friend Tanya Sturl, who's probably on, how much I hate shopping. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But, you know, our online presence, our social presence, all the channels that our business lives on outside of our website are opportunities for us to connect with people. Yeah. And so brand recognition is really, really important. And so cohesiveness comes into play here. Even at the simplest level of color, theory, and design, it should be cohesive across all channels. And just meaning like if they see your face or your font or your color preferences and your messaging, right, what you're actually communicating. So if your brand is, a lover of animals, then you're talking about loving animals, and it has that theme, and there's a sense of continuity that trickles over both visually and from your messaging. It's going to be really important. People have to it takes people like a dozen times to even get your brand on their radar.
Oh, yeah.
So
forget it.
I know a lot of times I often hear from clients like, they want to switch things up a lot because it sounds repetitive because they've been putting out the same thing for a while.
Yeah, but they don't realize that these feeds are like a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
And hundreds of thousands of pieces of data.
But if you also think about it, the bigger social platforms, most of the time they're only showing about 4 to 12% of your profile to your audience anyway, right?
That's
So
right.
think about the numbers there in terms of how often you have to keep repeating
That's
the
right.
same message.
That's right.
And so, first of all, don't get bored. Stick with it.
Yeah. Nia's taught me that.
Yeah, stick with
How to
it.
be organized.
Just
With
keep
your
going.
design.
Yep. And then what's helpful with social planning, like for your post and design, is really to get yourself a social planner, an automated scheduler. That's going to really help. It's going to help you see it visually. What's up? What do you need to make? What do you still build yourself a system to really get that content out there all the time, because that's a really important one.
Tell me about it.
I know if you're doing like one post at a time on the fly, you tend to feel like maybe like you're
forget it.
behind the eight ball all the time.
Sure.
And the continuity of brand is where that kind of can fall apart. But if you actually can, have a, weekly check-in with your social media, monthly check-in for some, whatever schedule works for you is fine.
Weekly.
Yep. And then,
I
and
happen
then,
to do social media.
and then
Yes,
just
weekly.
add that into your schedule.
But
You
so
can
what
actually
you're
see it.
saying is that it's better for them to think about having social brand design upfront that
Yeah.
they can then play with, so they're not second guessing,
Always.
or if somebody's sick or whatever.
Yeah.
You are a female entrepreneur.
Yeah, I find that brand design or brand continuity is better where you put it. Brand continuity will fall apart without a schedule because you can't see it, and you need to plan ahead. So anytime before a big campaign, relaunching or launching a website for the first time, you should have your calendar for social assets to share and communicate when you're going to make these. If you have an event or whatever it is, it's just going to help you get ahead of it, which is going to be something you also don't have to think about. And you'll see it all the way through, and you'll be able to use those visual assets in other areas of your business as well.
Okay, so let's talk, going back to analytics, which is what I always love talking about. So, and I've been doing social media for way too long in life. So anyway, so, and this has to do with branding, right?
Yeah.
And design. So with social media, you have Nia do great design for you, right? And you're expecting something, either brand awareness, brand traction, brand engagement, blah, blah, blah. So, you're measuring. I mean, the smart thing for you guys to do is measure the effectiveness of this brand design, right? So how many impressions did I get on this ad or this post? How many people click through, who's commenting, and blah, blah, blah. But how do they make a decision from a design standpoint, not from my world, on if they should change any element about their design if they're not getting impact, and how long should they wait? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Because I get that question a lot on the design side. So.
Yeah, I mean, so you have to give first, if you're going to do a campaign, right, you just don't know where to begin, just give yourself measurable goals, right,
Okay.
to test something.
Yep.
You can always, you can do something as intimate as testing your immediate, first-person network, friends and family, just to get a sense of, is this working? Is there anything I could do better?
Yeah.
If you can go beyond that, second tier, third tier, your community, you can poll your audience on social media. But generally, you want to have markers that you can test a campaign for a period of time. You're going to test these designs, see what works. You can look back. So if you're on Instagram, for example, you can see the impressions. You can see the shares.
Yeah.
There's also posts that tend to do better are posts that are shareable. So that's another thing that you can test as well. So, for example, when you post a picture of yourself, you're generally going to probably get within your immediate network, not in all cases. But if you're posting like a quote that is very shareable, people will are likely to share because it's more generalized. So there's a good way to test what's actually working, and you just have to decide what metrics are going to be important for you at that time, right? So does this, if it's more of a personal post and design, does it resonate with my immediate audience? And what's the traffic like there? What's the traction? Am I getting quotes, comments, so forth? Am I getting sales? Did it turn into a lead? Right? And then the more general post is what kind of impressions did it make? Because maybe there's a lot of accounts on social that are quotes. The whole thing is quotes, right? And they share.
People love quotes.
And they love it. So that's very easy to do. Animations do really well, really fun. Obviously, we know videos and things like that. So you'll just have to play around, give yourself a measurable goal of how to measure if these things are working or not, and then make tweaks based on that time period and based on the data that you receive from that time.
Okay. So I got a question here on Facebook. Sorry, I'm on my phone. We're outside. This is the most non-conventional podcast interview I've ever done.
It's working.
My hair is flying all over the place, but it doesn't really matter. So Stephanie Fisher, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, says, can you speak towards accessibility for anyone disabled? That's an awesome question. Yes, let's talk about that from a website perspective.
Absolutely.
And from social media. Excellent question.
Yes, excellent question, Stephanie. Thank you. So just one other thought, too, is she's looking to use the website for accessibility?
We don't know,
okay, that's okay.
I don't have my assistant, so I'm trying to do two things at once.
No, that's fine. So websites are becoming more ADA compliant. That is accessibility. That's a little accessibility button that you'll often see in websites. They're usually,
and how do they do that?
It is a third-party feature in most cases.
Okay.
They're very affordable if that's something you want to add to your website. And it's becoming more and more important. So, Stephanie, really excellent question, because it's going to become more and more relevant for people to have ADA compliance on their site. Mm-hmm. And it's a fairly easy thing to apply. So there's like a third-party button feature in most cases, and you can also make your website more ADA compliant. And what that actually means is you have certain contrasting colors for people that might have visual impairments. There are things that you can do to font weights and all kinds of things from a design standpoint. Mm-hmm. It's very important to understand where your website is actually built from, because they have different rules with their ADA compliance. Really good point. And there is, for protection of your business, it's really good to be ADA compliant, because there are some scenarios where people can get sued for not being ADA compliant.
Yeah, I mean, so you think if you see more sites going that way?
I do. And I think what's interesting, though, is that if you are trying to become ADA compliant for your website, SEO actually can go with it, too.
Right.
So all of the taggings of photos and all of the things that go into on-site SEO actually work with ADA compliance. So it's a good measure of like being able to do two things at once and really making it accessible for everyone, which is what it's there to do.
So really interesting. I'm glad she brought that up.
Yeah, it's an amazing question. Thank you.
No, just out of the blue, and I just have to, we're not even at the question. I don't know, because I'm trying to watch the clock, the phone, and this today. But in any event.
So hopefully that answered that for you, Stephanie.
All right, so let's talk about some action steps. Okay. Warrior women are all about action. So let's say you have a sucky design today.
Okay.
And you're not ready to hire a Warrior Women team to fix your brand. That's fine. And you want to start to do some things on your own to ensure that you're going down the right path. What are a couple things that you would tell someone to do in terms of design?
Okay. Well, the first thing I would say is, first, make a list of inspiration, right? Look for a few sites that you really like. This is actually one of the first steps that I do with all my clients. And I do this for a reason, because quite often we can't communicate what we like in the offset, but we know what we like when we see it. And so by sharing your inspiration, you're able to say, why do I like that site? I like it because the font is nice. I like it because of all the pop-ups. I like it because, I don't know, whatever it is, the color, whatever. But get a sense of what you actually like and what you like to see. More specifically, if you can go a little bit more granular, is actually look for your competitors in your field. What are they doing that you like? That's the next question, right? Because there's a trend in every industry, kind of what is expected, right? So I go back to that saying of like habitual trends in media, right? What are we used to seeing? You'll find that in every industry. So if you can find a few competitors and kind of see what the standard is, you'll kind of know what you need to build, right? So that's the first thing first. If you're not sure, do your research, get familiar with what you like for your own brand to make your own brand unique and stand out. And see how you can apply that. It might be something.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, absolutely.
That has to do because we complement each other.
Yes, we do.
Because your hair is very nice and mine's a big frizz-net.
Oh no,
it's totally cool.
No
we don't share today. It's Florida. It's my first time in Florida in so long. But anyway, no. What I was going to say is I would think also, because I'm involved with the strategy and the messaging, that the messaging, you might want to think about the messaging, what message you want to come across, right? That might help you think about what design you like.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
I feel like they play together really well, especially in that discovery place where you were talking about.
Absolutely. Well, if we use the example of a personal brand, right? So let's say you're a speaker.
Yes, I am.
Generally, you'll find personal brands will say, I do X, Y, Z. I teach children how to do this. I do that. I will help you solve this problem, right?
Yeah.
You sort of get a trend of what is expected, and that's where the messaging comes into play. And so you can kind of get your cues from there. That would be the first step. What's the messaging visually? What's happening on the website? What are the little bells and whistles that are moving along to make that site more interactive, more playful? And then structure, framework. Okay, so you want to, there's a few steps when you're developing a website. One, you want to solve the problem that your product or service delivers, right? I can, my product does this for your life, improves this quality. And usually that's somewhere at the top part of the real estate of the website. So usually that's like the first thing, you're making the promise. And then you have to fulfill the commitment, right? So you start providing things like case studies, social proof is a big one these days, reviews, and then you talk about maybe your insight, a little bit of past experience. One of your best converting pages is your about page, how you deliver, you know, customer service is a big role in that, what your plan is. All of that can lead it. Now, again, that's a lot of information, so we don't want to overclutter. We want things to breathe, but we want to give them a kind of story, a narrative, right? So I solved this problem. This is what it does. This is how I can help you. Here are our testimonials. Here are how you can work with us. There tends to be a narrative. And you'll see it again. Now, if you look at the sites that you frequent in these kind of categories, you'll see that. There's also a story narrative that happens for retailers and others. You just have to look to see what that kind of formula is. So depending on where your industry is, just look for the commonalities because they're there.
So do your research, figure out what your brand message is, and look at sites that appeal to you, even if they're totally out of industry, right? Yeah,
I think for inspiration for your own, or figuring out what your own brand is, out of industry is totally fine. Let it be far and wide, anything you can think of. And then when you want to get more specific on like, well, how do I design a homepage for my site? Then I would say look at your industry competitors, because there is a trend.
Yeah, that's true. And then people will expect that.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Exactly. So if you decide to move the home button all the way down to the footer, no one's going to find it. So we want to have at least some kind of balance there.
You might be drunk if you do that.
I mean, it could be fun. It could be like an escape room website.
Oh, well,
yeah. I would love that.
If it's a game. Find the home button. Actually, that's a cool idea. I think I'm going to change my website yet for the 4 millionth time.
If you can find it.
Can you find Nia on this website?
I go, where's Waldo?
Oh, my God. Great. She's a creative genius. All right, we got another question from Victor. What are cost-effective ways for new business owners to improve or enhance existing brand design? Cost-effective ways. Okay, so he wants to spend some money. He's investing in his business. Okay. But he wants to be cost-effective. But get good work done.
Okay, so, so I guess it depends on where your budget is, but cost-effective ways obviously could be, you know, hold on, let me take a step back.
It's a hard question to answer.
It is.
Because it's you know, like I had somebody contact me the other day. My agency does a lot of different, we support a lot of different markets, and we do music marketing, and Nia does our brand design there. And so they said, what can you do for $500? And it was like loose, you know?
Right.
So it's hard to answer with a number objective. I think maybe the way you want to look at it is maybe he's asking what are some cost-effective tools. Maybe you could go that route.
Okay, so for cost-effective tools for design, I mean, there's great platforms like Canva, which I use with my clients. And I use this, you know, I use Adobe as well for other types of projects, but what I'm actually trying to help my clients, and they want to take the design reins, Canva is really helpful for this because it's just easy to share, easy to get on, not overly complicated and very simple. So if they're going to be doing the design themselves, or they have a team member, like they've hired an assistant that they want help with, Canva is a great way to go. It has all of that wonderful team stuff. Now, the one thing I want to do is get back to cost, because I know that design tends to get pushed on the sidelines, because especially like in business, there's so many things that come at a cost. And quite often it'll be something to think about later in design. And well, if we start to think of the business as its own entity that needs marketing, and if you think about design and branding and all the stuff going into a marketing budget, I think then you can think about cost as a percentage of what you think the business is going to do proposed, or what you want to spend on it. So it doesn't become like it is or isn't cost effective, more that it's part of the programming.
Your overall goal.
Yeah, your overall goal.
And if you have some traction as a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
you might have a sense of what that means. I mean, in general, digital marketing budgets tend to be, I mean, with medium-sized businesses, tend to be like 5% of overall annual revenue.
Exactly.
Not even net. So because it is marketing, design, drive sales.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean. Whatever you deem is the percentage of your overall budget for your annual year should go into what it costs.
Yeah.
Right, and then you can determine from there what means you have to execute on that. And you might find it actually is more affordable than you think based on a certain percentage of annual sales. So just trying to get out of like this either cost too much.
Yeah,
or
that's
too
why
little.
I brought up that example, because it's hard to say it in a vacuum, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, design does bring value. Elevating your brand.
Forget it, right?
It is
because
really important.
everyone that comes to me as a speaker is like all about the keyword visibility, right? And how many, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on if you actually read, I hate to say that to world, but it's true, is that people now are living more in a picture world.
Yeah.
Picture, images, videos. I mean, nowadays, it's much more important to invest in design than other forms of content. And I'm talking about graphic design. You mentioned motion graphics, animation, illustration, video, right?
Yep, all of it.
So is there an example of maybe a client that you've worked with who's gone from zero brand to a brand design development where they've been successful in terms of met whatever their business goals were, and you could share a range of the budgets they spent on design?
Well, yeah. So I think, again, in most cases, my clients tend to have it's more lumped in, right? So design is part of the marketing strategy,
right?
In most cases, right? They're not saying specifically this is the number that we're spending on design, but it's always included that we're going to do social, website, whatever it's going to end up being in the end. Mm-hmm. But I think that in terms of it's hard to quantify in that with that specific question, because again it's going into marketing. But I do know, I do recognize that with my clients how design can evolve. So when they're putting marketing budgets towards
very good idea.
One demographic or and it ends up translating into something different. So you can have an audience that has, like, you think your primary demographic is mostly male of a specific age, and then it turns out that maybe it's you also have another demographic.
It's Warrior Women in Business. I was like, oh my God, all these women need our help. It's true, and it's also smart, because we're talking about segmentation, right? Design, again, is so important because it can help you better understand your target audience, right? You might go from primary audience A being primary audience B, and more revenue goes there. And I do that. Nia knows. For JSM all the time. I'm like, oh, well, I work with executives. They're skewing more male, but there's more female entrepreneurs. So the brand can help you understand that better, right? So the more that you're watching where the brand goes, you can dictate those brand changes.
And if you have more than one audience, like Jasmine's speaking about, you will design based on those audiences.
Good point.
And then based on the data that you receive, you can tweak your design later and the communications around that, right? And continue to really get a sense of who that end person that you're really serving.
Yeah. All right. So I have one last question. I'm still taking questions from my phone here. If anybody has any questions, who's ever on, just put them in Facebook. So I ask this of every guest, even though she is our exclusive Warrior Women in Business coach and part of JSM. What does a Warrior Women in Business mean to you?
What does a Warrior Woman? That she's making her own way, right? That she's defining her life, that she sees it on her terms, and she's just unapologetically being her, but in her own right. Like everybody has, like Jasmine calls me the gentle warrior.
She is the gentle warrior. It's so opposite. But that's her power. That's your power, right? You can find strength in being gentle. It's not all about, we're in episode 34, and I think very early on I had a woman who thought that warrior women she said to me, well, I think it only means strength in the form of the physical sense. And I said to her, no, I think there's so many elements and parts to being a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to being a warrior woman. And it is about finding your strength. And as we're talking about today, that definitely relates to your brand, right? Like, what is your strength? What is your warrior women's strength that you want your brand to show, and how can you illustrate that through your design?
Yeah, and just also knowing that, like, there is somebody out there that needs what you have to offer and say,
Really good point.
And you just have to get it out there and not be afraid to communicate it. Go bold if you want to go bold, or not if you don't choose that. I mean, it's just have fun with your brand, and it'll take you a long way.
Perfect. All right, so we got 10 minutes left, but I just wanted to, while I'm waiting for any other questions, you can just put them into Facebook. One thing that we're going to offer for any of you that want to take advantage of this offer, well, actually a couple of things. So first of all, if you are interested if you need a beautiful brand, you could go and see on Warrior Women in Business and JasmineSandler.com a lot of the work that Nia has been involved with in terms of brand design. We're offering across the board any brand design. So that's website design and development. The cool things that she was talking about in terms of gifts and social media design to printed design, which, God willing, as a speaker, I am dying for the conference world to open up. So come on already, or sign, or whatever. Listen, when you have a business, you need design at every level. So we're offering 15% off any design. Furthermore, if you are a Warrior Women in Business member, which if you're not, you can go to warriorwomenbusiness.com and find out about that. We're offering an additional 30% off any brand strategy or user experience functionality. So if you're going through trying to figure out your brand strategy overall, you're trying to figure out how you're going to create a great user experience, we can help with that for additional 30% off. For either of those, all you need to do is shoot us an email to info@warriorwomenbusiness.com. Again, it's warriorwomenbusiness.com, and just mention this podcast, episode 34, in your subject line. And then if you're not interested in any of those things, you just have questions for us, follow-up questions, please just shoot us a question. We're happy to answer that.
Yeah.
So that's warriorwomenbusiness.com, and our email is info@warriorwomenbusiness.com. Okay, so I don't see any other questions in Facebook today.
All right.
Yeah.
Just us.
It's just us.
It's just us, and I like it. Okay. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah. So for those of you that are probably going to be watching this later, again, this is Nia Dara, who is our Warrior Women in Business exclusive designer for female entrepreneurs. We can't emphasize enough, if you listen to this entire video, how important design is to your bottom line. Your brand doesn't need to suck. It can be gorgeous, and it's not going to be too expensive because it's an investment. And if you want your business to succeed today, when everything is show and tell, you need to invest in a proper brand design.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do I have one more minute to share?
You do. I was going to say, if you'd like any other comments to share, advice to share, please do so. We have a couple minutes.
Also, for businesses that are just starting out, why design is also so important is you can draw in some of those partnerships that you might be looking for towards the future, relationships, albeit local retailers or people that you want to partner up with. Having a well thought out brand and design will actually solidify trust earlier on for your business.
Really good point. It's like showing up with the right suit on.
Yeah, so even if you're not there with the numbers, whether it be social numbers or something in your business, or you're just starting out, if you put a lot of thought
really good idea
into your brand early on, it lets people know that you've really come to do business, but also that you're polished, like you're ready to show up and ready to go. And I think that has a lot. That can help a lot in the early stages when you're trying to acquire clients and partnerships.
I didn't talk about this application, Nia, but it's hugely important for any of you that actually know Warrior Women in Business. One of our other coaches is awesome, Precious Williams, our pitch coach, who's been on Shark Tank a billion times. She's just amazing. So when you're going to pitch, and I actually work with female angel investor groups for some of our clients, you need an awesome pitch deck. And it needs to look like your brand's been out there more than a year of collecting the revenues of probably $50,000 to $100,000 that these angel investors expect.
Absolutely.
You need really killer design. Like you're going to walk in there and ask them for $1 million, whatever it is.
Absolutely. And they want to see that it matters. And it's down to the details. They will look at those things because it communicates something,
and
right?
it shows that you've invested.
Yep.
And that's what they want to see. So I have one more question on Facebook. What is the easiest way to promote your new brand design once you achieve the look and message you want? SEO, Facebook ads. Well, we both can answer this.
Yeah.
So first, I'll let you answer it.
Okay. Well, depending on, I'll let her do the ads part. So in
and the SEO part.
Yeah, the SEO part. So in your immediate network is, I think that the cornerstones of good business is building your email list. So that would be a great place.
Another application of design, you guys, which I personally hate doing.
Exactly. It's a great way to, it's a great
so
way.
much work.
I love design.
I know, she loves it, not me. Go ahead.
You can, again, it's those touch points that happen at different places. So of course social, but your email list can also be an extension of visually communicating to your audience that you've made some changes, that the new launch is here, that you want them to see different elements that are going to, show up on your website, depending on if you're at different stages of development, or boom, here we are, we're starting fresh.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I want to add on to that if you're done.
Absolutely, I am.
Okay. So I love this question. I've been doing this stuff for so long. So email. Let me just talk about that for half a second. So when you get started with a new brand and you've invested in it, right? If you're working in a holistic 360 way, like in the work that we do, we're looking at it from top down, okay? So brand strategy, brand design, brand messaging, target audience, right? And we're looking to, as Nia said so eloquently, have a cohesive, congruent design across all platforms and channels that are really related to reaching and engaging your audience. So you want to start really early on with collecting email addresses. That's like number one. You need to think about those email addresses as being gold. They're almost like direct sales, direct revenue. So as you're building out your brand across channels, Facebook, whatever, your website, Instagram, blah, 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 always have a call to action related to getting opt-in emails, and actually spend a little bit of time and money in having an email auto flow sequencing system set up. It's really, really important. So platforms like HubSpot, Zoho, Marketo, I could spend an hour on this, but having that set up is going to help you get some customers. Absolutely. You just invested all this money in brand design. You need to start getting customers. Okay. The other thing is SEO, which I've been doing. I'm a keynote speaker. So SEO, I love when a business owner is smart and says, like a new client that we're working with very shortly here, which we're excited about. When I sat down with them, their website is, maybe they're listening. I won't say atrocious, but it's old. And so I was like, I'm so excited to redesign this website with Nia. But furthermore, they have 5 offices. And I said, let's really focus on local SEO. So the point is, SEO should come in during design. They work together hand in hand. Okay, you have a new brand design, you should have already started thinking about SEO. So that's what we do. We got to marry both of these, because a large SEO factor, as we previously mentioned, is human user experience. Yep. Okay. And SEO is a continual job. Yep. So if you're designing a brand and you have the opportunity, if you're a small business owner, to do it locally first, it will cost you less money in SEO. So I just want to start with that. Advertising. Okay. So the beauty is social advertising doesn't cost that much, right? Generally with our clients, I'm suggesting a minimum of like $500 a month. If they've invested in a brand and they're really looking to get traction, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're selling a product yet. It could be that they're a commerce business, and they are, but maybe they're just trying to get brand awareness. So with social media, not only can you use it for awareness, but for me, as somebody, my background's in market research, you can use it for market research. Yeah. So do people like the brand, or the variations of the brand, or the copy, or the font? Like, you should be very aware. If you're going to even put a penny behind an ad, be very strategic about it.
Yeah.
You
Can
know?
I also say one point to that
Yeah.
about putting money behind an ad?
Yeah.
So it's really important, I think. I've had a lot of clients in the past like be kind of weary of marketing.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like they've had not a great
bad
experience.
Yeah.
They put money into it.
Yeah.
And maybe they just didn't get the return that they were looking for. And so they decided, okay, that's not a channel for me.
Yeah.
I don't want you to give up on that. But I think it's important to understand that it's kind of like, it's like Einstein testing the light bulb theory again and again. You're going to keep testing and testing till you get the secret sauce.
Yeah.
But it's important to make sure that your design and your branding is in place before you start spending money on that. Do you think, or that you think it's wise to just go out and spend money on ads just to get it out there?
Sorry, I just got notified that we had participants on the webinar that I believe I've been ignoring because it's just a crazy setup today. So Carly and Haley, I'm sorry. If you guys have any questions, you could use the Q&A and we'll extend this for a few minutes. My apologies. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
Before spending money on ad dollars,
Yeah.
the importance of design and having a sense of your branding and direction before going into it. Do you think that's valuable?
Hugely important. So let me just click this off. Yeah. So you need to understand who you are advertising to. Mm-hmm. I'll just start with that, right?
Yeah.
You need to understand where they're going to go.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Gender, age, location, going back to my location point, and is your website set up for that traffic? Like, you got to have good landing pages, or you got to have a good conversion point.
Yeah.
So before you do invest in ads, that's why I said, like, if you're just going to use it as a market research tool within social media, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're really using it to see business results, you need to have a strategy behind it, because advertising, we do a lot of paid search advertising, which is costly because it's very competitive, really no matter what industry. You've got to have a strategy behind it and conversion points. You can track this stuff. You can even, like talking about customer service, when people click on an ad and they do something, they want to respond.
Yeah.
You have to be able to have someone there, or some live chat filter or something. So, yeah, absolutely. You need a plan. You have to have a plan, because you just have much higher conversion than just, for example, like Facebook is always asking you to spend money. Nothing against Facebook. Yeah. I mean, I wish I was Mark Zuckerberg, but anyway, so, but don't just spend money on an ad because it looks, or a post because it looks pretty. Instead, think about, all right, what do I want behind this? Who's the audience? What is this going to be? Because it can be very fun just to do self-serve advertising. And then all of a sudden, you're out all this money. So, yeah. You need a plan.
Yeah, you need a plan.
I'm just checking to see if there's any Q&A here. I'm checking on the screen. No open questions. Okay. All right. So how are we doing on time? I think we are just about at 4:02. So I want to thank everybody for coming on today on Facebook Live, on the webinar here. And again, we're going to be editing this. I'm going to click off here. We're going to be editing this and providing this on all the Warrior Women in Business channels. So what you need to do is go to warriorwomeninbusiness.com. You can sign up for our beautiful looking newsletter. And you can also connect with us in social media. So when the edited version is up, you can have it. And again, we're offering 15% off any of the design services and an additional 30% off any existing or new Warrior Women in Business members. You can learn what all the benefits are about Warrior Women in Business on warriorwomeninbusiness.com, and our email where you can reach us, whether you want to take advantage of something or just have more like branding and design questions. Don't hesitate to ask, because there are a million.
Yeah.
And I think we just covered like the basics today to get you guys moving. Again, that email is info@warriorwomeninbusiness.com. Again, my name is Jasmine Sandler, the CEO of Warrior Women in Business. This is episode 34, and we look forward to episode 35. I really want to thank Nia for taking the time out and hosting me today in her lovely home in Florida for this really fun interview.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me. Thank you for spending time with us. And I hope that I was able to help provide some insights and you had fun with us.
Absolutely. All right. So here's to everybody's brand being super successful in 2020. Do it. Signing off for Warrior Women in Business. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next podcast.